Yeah, we were on our way back from Settle, doing a gig that night. All very quiet, Sunday evening. And about an hour and a half later, we've entered Bradford, and it was 12 when the accident happened. I, at the time, was sat trying to find a restaurant open on the Monday afternoon, as a friend had asked if he could take myself, Lucy and Harry out for food in Saltaire near Bradford. So I was kind of disengaged because I couldn't find a restaurant open on a Monday.
Were you parked?
No.
Lucy was driving.
Yeah, Lucy was driving. I was in the rear of the vehicle, and Harry, my son, was passenger seat. So it's all extremely quiet. We've turned, and as I say, I didn't have my phone on most of the journey back. I generally like to sit and just absorb the silence after a show. But I was checking restaurants open in Saltaire. Ironically, doing it at that time might actually really helped me, because I was possibly in a more relaxed state when the impact happened. And my head was bowed down. Harry had his headphones in. He'd only just decided to listen to some of his music, but actually isolated. That happened about 15 minutes before. And Lucy, of course, was driving. Harry was hungry on the way home and asked if we could stop somewhere. The only thing we found open was a McDonald's, but decided to go past, as Harry debated quite healthily with Mum. Mum, just wait till we're home, Harry. It's only 15-20 minutes. And whilst there's never any... You don't ever cast blame, but we always cast blame on ourselves. But I think even Lucy said that if I'd stopped at McDonald's, well, was it meant to be that we didn't stop at McDonald's? Often, if there's any vegans listening, they'll probably say we should never stop at McDonald's, or vegetarians. But anyway, we continued, and Bradford was just completely silent. It was, it was so quiet. You were lucky if you saw a car on the road at that point. Sunday evening, May the 22nd. And then we've driven down Canal Road coming into Bradford. And then, I was on the phone looking down. Could I find a restaurant open in Saltaire? No, closed. Where else can I tell Steve, who offered to buy us food? And then that was it. 12, Monday the 23rd it would have been. Hit by a stolen car at, we think a real it was around 60 miles an hour, we think, but they were followed by a multiple police car chase. We did see the helicopter overhead just before it happened. We heard a lot of noise, but just rumblings in the air about something was going on, and the cars just come out of a giveaway straight into us. It feels to me like we spun 3 or 4 times, but the violence of the impact, I had no airbags in the back. That's why the injuries have been so difficult to recover, because the impact's thrown me from left to right in such a violent fashion. The weirdest thing, the most surreal thing about the journey was Harry, Lucy and myself all actually processed the accident completely differently, in that I typically, I don't know if it's typical, it was very cinematic. So as the car has hit us, I just feel like we're spinning. I can see light, and because obviously there were other cars, the police cars following. There was this immersion of light and sort of psychedelic experience to me. And I saw Harry's head go, and his arms are above him. They're shaking like rag dolls. And I see Lucy's arms go. And as I'm sat in the back, honestly, I thought, this is it. And I reach my arms out to them both and think, we go together. Because I was convinced the impact was it was like a bomb going off. I've never heard noise quite like it. I gather that was the impact, and we had a tyre or two blow out. And at that moment, the light seemed to change. And I thought we were going off the edge of a cliff. I couldn't compute where we were. So even though I was where we were coming to Bradford at that moment, the car hit, we were in some other land. And then I thought we'd gone off the cliff, and I was waiting to feel the impact of going over the edge of a cliff, bizarrely. Harry remembers the smells of the accident, and more he's had a trauma almost in a way of remembering the sight and sounds of it. Lucy doesn't remember anything at all. So she thinks she may have blacked out at the point of moving the car, and then the impact so strong she doesn't recall. Then as we did sort of just land, there was this noise all around and you can hear, and then I was in such agony, I thought I'd broken my ribs actually in my pelvis because of the pain. And my son Harry was so worried because he didn't hear me, I didn't make a sound for about, he said 20 seconds, but then I just started to wail. And as I was wailing, Lucy was in such a state, her adrenaline got her out of the car and she was really crying, but there's different things happening with the car, that I don't know if there was smoke or she was just worried about getting us out. And then before I knew it, there were just police everywhere and emergency services. And actually at that point it was so extra surreal because I thought, wow, the emergency services are here so fast, but I couldn't quite quantify as to how they'd arrived there. It was only after, it took me about 25 minutes to get out because of the pain I was in. I didn't think I could move, and eventually I sort of almost crawled out, and as we got out I realised there were police cars and ambulances. There was a fire service that pulled up, and unfortunately they had to cut Harry out, and that moment of all Harry's challenges prior to the accident, my heart was just in my mouth because I thought, oh goodness me, Harry could be paralysed. That was the hardest thing. And to conclude, thank goodness Harry didn't have the back injury they thought he might have had, because when I've reenacted the crash in my own head, you process it originally, but the two things were Lucy and Harry have had lesser injuries than me physically, but when I ask myself about that, I'd still rather be that way. Primarily Harry is in the passenger seat, the impact came towards him, his legs were trapped, so that's why the fire service had to cut him out. And I'm thinking at first, that looks like the worst place to be. Harry was the most unscathed, almost miraculously. And the police commented on this, is this, even the police who weren't particularly kind of, what did they say? Do you have someone looking over you? Or the fact that your car is built like a tank, because we were in a Nissan Elgrand. And obviously Lucy's had her injuries, but my injuries physically have been the most profound because I didn't have any airbags, and I think the violence of the crash has thrown me from left to right so badly that yeah, that's it in a nutshell anyway.
I suppose more than just the physical injuries, it's been all the traumas since then though, for everybody in the family.
Yeah, because as I say, I've had many experiences in my life, and experiences you think, how will you deal with it? This has maybe been the most surreal journey for me because I'm very body aware and body sensitive, and I've had my own health challenges over the years. So I'm very keenly aware of what my body can and can't do. And what was amazing, debilitating, surprising, and enlightening might be the wrong word, was I can't read my body at all. There have been times in this journey of rehabilitation that I don't know if this is in the medical profession, people talk about trauma dumps, and that the body's so intelligent that what it does is it realises the trauma is huge, it gives you a certain amount of trauma to process, and then maybe 3 months later it'll give you a little more. If it gave you the whole trauma at one point, you might go into physical mental breakdown fully. I suppose a lot of soldiers and people that have been in terrible sort of situations in great wars or conflict, that's why they have PTSD, possibly the rest of their lives. For me, it's been the trauma of dealing with what I've dealt with, feeling as if, not that we were chosen, but as if like there's been a relentless series of challenges we've had to come through as a family. And I know there's a lot of people that will have this far more challenging, you know, whether you're losing limbs or you've lost a child, or, you know, some people lose their whole families. I know in the Great Tsunami, I read a great story, not a great story, but an endearing story and an inspiring story about a lady's courage who lost her whole family in real time. She lost her husband and 3 children. So whenever I look at life, I still always look at how lucky we were that we're still here. It could have been a lot worse, and in all scenarios I look at life like that. Things can always be a lot better, but they can always be a lot worse. And some of those people who go through the worst, you know, so Lucy or Harry could have died, I could have died, how would they have dealt with that? Dad died, or Harry died. So I always say this has been really tough, but wow, we're quite blessed that we're here. And I think me trying to come to terms with what my body is doing, it's been an alien form, in that I know when we spoke, Nick, over this last year regarding doing things or even trying to do things, I've tried to do little things, and the fallout from that, how the body responds, it feels like I've just done a 26-mile marathon. And I know before we did the video for Clarabelle, I know we've been waiting to do it so long, and I didn't feel like I had the energy. I've had like 15 minutes of energy to try and do something, playing the bouzouki, or try to do a little bit of something, and then you do a little bit more, and it feels like it's gone from a sort of gentle affliction to this like, wow, oh, I better stop. And the body's just gone, the body's almost closed me down. It's literally shut off all my senses. And just before doing the Clarabelle video, I was kind of taken aback again because I had a gentle walk, and for 3 days I couldn't, not quite not move, but it's as if my body's solidified, calcified. That's been the difficulty, and I don't know if that's more mental trauma and how the body's storing trauma, that my body just some days will not work. And of course you go through profound existential conversations with yourself about, I know how hard it is just to make a living as an independent musician, and you think, all this time away from all of this, what am I going to be left with coming back to? Because we know there's been certain fans and people that have kept contact and they've supported me, which has been beautiful, but you realise there are a lot of people who, one, probably don't want to converse about it with you because they find it too difficult, and I respect that. There's a lot of people that kind of fall away because they've been punch-bagged by life themselves, and this has been a really difficult period for us all collectively, pre-pandemic and post, that people they're compassion weary, so they try to deal with their own lives and heal themselves, or deal with the potential loss of jobs or sickness or family members dying or their own health. Oh hell, I better reach out to Shaun, Lucy and Harry, find out how they are. They're probably running on empty, so they don't know what to say themselves, they don't know how to give. And I think we spoke about this earlier, that all you can do is try and replenish yourself, and whether it's meditative practice for me or staying as centered as I can be, because believe me, the journey on a relative level, on the level of the mind, is kind of saying, God, this is difficult, this is really hard. And some days you just go with it. Some days I've cried, I've purged, and you've got to accept the balance of the journey.
So what's going to happen in the future? I mean, we've got the near future, and I know you haven't really got a date or any kind of timescale for being gig fit, shall we call it. But in the meantime, you have got a new album, which is nearly finished, I believe.
Yeah.
And you've got, and there are other projects, some of which I'm aware of, obviously. But how do you see the future in terms of as a profession using music?
Yeah, it's that's been another wow. That's been another, like, you think you're aware of your own reflection, and you think you're aware of your own challenges, and you think you've come face to face with your greatest fears. And I've done that in so many ways, but this has taken me to a greater, deeper level. It's almost like the bowels of the earth that I've been faced with. And the journey is, as I just said there, it's the computing the difficulty of working as an independent musician, and just how challenging it is. And all independent musicians can relate to this, that even if you have a relative bit of success, what you're looking at is the vehicle that keeps moving that forward, or how you move it in a day and age where things are getting more difficult. Social media, algorithms, you becoming invisible for all the things you've worked for. Those services actually work so well, and suddenly it feels like it's a complete inversion of the service. And I know a lot of people are struggling with this. For me, it's been a case of, again, the most surreal. I know I keep using the word surreal, which must be surreal for people who know me, because I do surreal quite well. When I made the album, the new album, I was in such discomfort and in such pain that talking to my long-time friend and collaborator Damien Clark, and Wendy, the violinist who made this record with me, he'd actually questioned, why you're making a record at this point? You're in such pain, you're trying to rehabilitate. And I would honestly say that I'd lost my mojo entirely, apart from these songs. And naturally I would feel, yeah, your mojo's gone. Well, because your body is so traumatised, you've come through so much. Let your body heal, take time out, and that's what I was doing, apart from these songs. It was as if, here's this part of me that's saying, I'm going away for a year, if you had that luxury. I'm going to Italy, or I'm going to somewhere to live and recuperate. Oh, hang on, I've got these songs. Wow, what are you doing? But the songs just poured out effortlessly, as they often do. I find music and art, it's a form of alchemy to me, and I don't completely feel responsible ever for what comes out of me. I think it comes from this higher source that I'd never been able to figure out or configure. So it was asking something of me. And I had this interesting conversation with Damien about, is that your future self reaching out to your present self? Which I know sounds a little bit cryptic and a little bit out there, but he got it completely. And this record feels, it's certainly sacred. I will dare use the word holy, and holy in the way that it's a holistic, complete overview that it was something about the whole journey. I won't explain the whole concept of the record, but it's basically soporific. It's soft, and its nature is like it's like a balletic dance, but it's the sort of record you'd put on early evening or late evening before falling asleep. So I'm kind of amazed I did that in great discomfort on many opioids, which I'm trying to slowly wean off. That's been a challenge because of the pain. But I've made that record on opioids, which didn't help the creative process. The creative process was already sort of happening, but it helped me record the songs. The strangest thing I'll leave you with is making this record. I had in my mind, before the accident, the next record I would make would be the late night accompaniment. So you've gone through the whole journey and you can put this record on at the end. It's not meant to make you dance. It's not meant to energise you. It's meant to be a reflective connection to something deeper. And even though I had that in my mind, that I would almost, it would be a softer delivery in the voice. It would be a very gentle delivery of this idea I had. After the accident, I couldn't sing in my range anyway. So it was as if like it had been preordained. And the only thing I will say is, to leave people on a positive note, is I still say, people ask me, how do I feel about the injustices it seems that we've gone through? And I say, my human part of myself argues with that and can battle with that at times. I feel very hard done by at times. But there's something on the ultimate level that says this is a blessing. This is something really so profoundly beautiful, that what it's unveiled and revealed in me is almost a psychological death of all the stuff that we all get lost in, but this ultimate reveal of something that I can't really put into words. And all I can say is, whilst it doesn't make sense in the linear path, there may be something way beyond my mortal comprehension of why this happened, or why this had to happen. And I'm a great believer that everything does happen in some sense of cosmic design. I really wish we hadn't been through as much as a family as we have, but maybe this is my journey, and I kind of accept the path with grace, even when my human aspects of me, my also human aspects of me, might be in tears or battling the pain or thinking, why?